All right. Hey, guys, welcome to another episode of Mediocre Dads. I'm your host, Quan. I go by Q, of course. And on this episode of Mediocre Dads, I have a guest. And I'm getting used to saying that, having a guest, because before I didn't have guests. Now I do have guests. I've had a lineup of guests be on, and I'm super appreciative of them coming on and wanting to talk to me. And so you all can hear them tell their story or whatever the case might be. But I have another guest, and this guest, we were just kind of talking beforehand, and I can tell you guys, you're going to enjoy them. You're going to have a good time. You're going to have a good laugh. And you're also going to, get your tissue boxes, okay? Because, he does have a story. Just like all of us, we have our own story, we have our own experiences that help shape who we are. But what I think is powerful is the fact that when something happens, something terrible happens in your life, and then you're able to, navigate your way to a point where you can have a smile such as his, and laugh such as his, and tell jokes as he does. It's amazing to see that you would never think that someone went through something so difficult to get to this point where they are. We talk about the new words, the buzzwords right now are trauma, right? And for someone to go through their trauma of their own and then come out and you see them and they're making you smile, and you're like, how does this guy smile all the time? Like, you know what I mean? It's almost, it's infectious, that's why I'm smiling right now. So, but anyway, we're gonna get into it. I'm not gonna hog the mic. I'm gonna let him, take over here. Cause that's why I have guests, so I don't have to talk all the time. But without further ado, guys, I have Mark Smith here. Awesome individual. He's got he's got a story of his own, but he's been on a lot of podcasts, a lot of different shows where he's told his story, and all of his stuff and all his ways you can reach him or whatever, or see other stuff that he's put out or he's been a part of will be in the description below. So don't worry, you can check out some of his other stuff that he's been on. But without further ado, guys, I'll introduce you to Mark. And Mark, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you so much. The big Q. We've spent about 10 minutes together. All right. And some people think the reason I can smile is because I've got all these concussions from wrestling. That's probably partly true.
Oh.
People asked me one time, how do you have a happy marriage? And I told them, I said, separate vacations and a bottle. But no, that's not true. That's not true. Okay. But anyway.
Oh, man.
When I told my wife, she said, well, that's about right, ain't it? Anyway. But no, I appreciate this so much, guys. Uncle Q, I'm going to ask you, brother, what is this?
That is a boot.
Do you know who's been kicked with this boot?
Oh man. Oh, it's okay. That looks like a wrestling
Yes.
shoe.
Yes.
Is that what that is?
Okay. People that have been kicked.
I bet you have.
No, this is mine. I was doing the kicking.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Ricky
We're condoning violence now. So
no, good. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, God bless him. He was one of my opponents.
Oh, wow.
The Steiners, the Fabulous Freebirds, Ron Simmons, Hacksaw Butch Reed, gee whiz, who else? Flying Brian Pillman. That show where the Darker Side of the Ring, I've worked with most of those people. I was wrestling for almost 5 years professionally, and I've worked for Dusty Rhodes wearing these boots, and I've been in the ring with Terry Funk, with Flair. So, I was on Saturday nights, and I'm actually right now on the Peacock Network, if you can believe it. So, yeah.
Really?
So I wanted to show you that because, and I want to show you, people think that the bottom of the boots are soft. Let me see if you can hear this.
Okay, so I did believe they were soft.
No, sir. Now you
I did believe they were soft, but that is rough.
Oh, yes. And what happens is this is called crepe. And the hard thing is, like mine, I was about to get it re-creped when I walked away because the crepe was out to here, was that thick when I bought these boots.
And you were kicking people with that?
You
were getting kicked, I imagine, too,
yes,
though, right?
Good Lord, I was getting killed all the time, yeah. And this right here, that's so hard, my sternum's been cracked because somebody went in, they were kicking me underneath, and they didn't flatten it out, and they caught me right in the right in the sternum, and it was cracked, and I finished the match not being able to breathe. Serious story.
So is wrestling fake though? It's like, it's not fake in the sense of like, it's entertainment, but is
It's so much more sport than what you think, brother. So much more sport.
Okay.
You have to be an athlete, number one.
Oh, I wholeheartedly believe that part. I wholeheartedly believe, like, you cannot just show up and be like, yeah, I'm going to launch this dude over my shoulder.
And it's stories that are told, but honest, we're better than stuntmen because we have to be able to read a crowd, relate to the crowd, call the match, and do all that at the same time. And there are no take twos. There's a lot of pressure. You can get fired in a night's notice. Predetermined, yes. Most everybody knows that. At the same point, you have people that work extremely light, which means they don't hurt you quite as bad. You have other people that work kind of stiff. And I've worked a lot of stiff people, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that contact and hearing the crowd go, ooh, that's when you know you got them.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. But now, that's not the whole story. A lot of guys who wrestle come out and they write books and so forth. Wrestling did teach me a lot. But really, wrestling was something that God used to break me. And I'm sure I'm glad it happened. I dug myself in such a hole. Now, you talk about the traumas and stuff. Just tell me up front, and if you don't, that's cool. What do you know about my childhood? I'm just curious. Do you know anything about my childhood, Q?
I remember you when we were interacting previously. You sent me a message, and I read the whole thing. I'm not gonna lie to you.
No, it's okay. It's okay, Bubba. That's the reason I said there's no pressure. Okay, because it's okay.
I feel bad. Don't. Hey guys, I have people on guests. I just want to let you know I do know about who I'm talking to.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to put you in that position. I swear. And you're good. You're good, brother. Hey, all the work. And let me go ahead and preface this, if I may. That is to you that are listening. You're giving us the greatest gift that you could ever give us, and that is time. Because once time is gone, you can never get it back. So 100%. To the audience, thank you so much. Now I'm going to tell you, Q, what I've learned in a short time, this guy's a loving guy, and he cares about people, and I know he's real. And that's the reason I was just asking him that question, because I wasn't sure. But the thing is, the labor of love he has to do for this entire thing, I'm amazed he can remember anything. You get what I mean? I mean, seriously.
Oh, yeah.
So, folks, he's a person that should be admired because this is a labor of love. So, thank you for tuning in. Q, is that okay, me saying that?
Of course. I appreciate the kind words.
Well, anyway, I wrote a book, Wrestling with Demons. Let's see. There I am as a young stud. Woo, look at, I was hot, man. Anyway, Q, you don't have to laugh that hard when I say that.
I always think it's funny. So, like, as we get older, people are like, "Man, look at me! I sure was handsome." And then you look at yourself, you're like, "I sure was, wasn't I?" And then you look at yourself in the mirror, and you're like, "God, what happened? God, what? I just kind of what was Abraham's wife? Abraham's wife's name was it Sarah? I think it was Sarah, and Sarah had a baby at 100 years old, 98, 99 years old, 100 years old. Anyway, right? Could you imagine? And keep in mind, Abraham it already over 100. So like, I only imagine what these people look like.
Really?
And they're like, let me just go out and walk 100 miles. Anyway, that's all right. Like, just imagine them saying, like, look when I was 40 years old, man, young and sprightly.
You're going to make me say something, man. And I'm going to feel so bad when I say it. I reckon when you get
Oh,
that old, it's good we can turn off the lights.
oh yeah.
I'm sorry. Q, you led me into that. Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Yeah.
you're looking at your loved one. She goes, no, no, no. Go ahead and keep those off. That's better for both of us. And you're like, that's probably
Oh Lord. Well, that's true. I mean, as far as myself, you know, the book is called Wrestling with Demons, is because I at first was writing it thinking about the inner demons I was fighting. Now, my dad was beaten with chains as a kid. I mean, really. And
like act like thick chains,
yes,
like you would like to
yes,
pull some. Oh wow.
yes.
Oof. No
And
child should have to live through that.
he never was able to process it. And when you have trauma as a child and and you can't process it, he wanted to hide it. We can't hide our downfalls. We have to deal with them. So my mom's great. I talked to her about 2 hours ago. She's doing fantastic and love her, and she was a real stabilizer of the family. But my dad, every night he would come home, we would be in a sweat, wondering if it was a good day or a bad day.
Hmm.
Because really, for the kids, they were the only ones he could take it out on. And so I remember the last time he popped me with a fist. And when I didn't go down, he looked at me, tried to hug me. And I said, "Get away from me, I'll kill you." Anyway, he passed away with cancer. And a brother of mine and myself, we actually dug his grave and we covered it up.
Dang.
And it tormented me. Then I realized, and I don't know how this epiphany hit me, but I realized that was the last act of love I could do for my dad to make sure that he was taken care of. And then I stopped having the nightmares. Does that make sense?
It does. And so, you and I know I'm sure there's a lot more to that, but it was so your dad was abused. He was abused, and then it
Mm-hmm.
continued through him. And even through all of that, at the end of the day, when it was time for him, when it was time to put him down to rest, there was still a level of compassion and love to say this man was still my
And that's
dad.
where, and at that point, is I had already wrestled with the demons, if that makes sense.
It
When I
does.
wrote
Yeah.
this book, I cried. I wrote it, I got about 125, 130 pages into it, I think, and then I realized I was watching the news and seeing everything that was happening in society. I mean, guys, people, I don't care, black, white, red, polka dot, I don't care, because people were pulling everybody outside of their vehicles and beating them to death. I remember in Oakland. Do you remember a few months ago in Oakland, when the city had to shut down because
Hmm.
the city workers were afraid? It
Yeah.
wasn't just they were afraid of black individuals or white individuals. Look, because I believe our society and we're not dealing with our demons.
I agree.
I think that's gotten us to the point to where instead of trying to get to know someone, to understand someone, society has decided now it's just easier to shoot them and kill them and get them out of the way.
We are no longer treating each other like the human beings that we are. We are all flesh and
Mm-hmm.
blood, and we may look different on the outside, but the internal
Exactly.
organs that are exactly the same. Um, Speaking generally here, not like people who
Yeah,
obviously don't have are missing some things, but in general, we are all the same.
that's right.
We all have the same makeup. Our bodies, we are made up of the same thing, different parts, right? Internally, I have a heart just like you have a heart. I have lungs just like you have lungs. And whatever the case might be, and it's crazy to me at the end of the day that we can find something, a small, minute difference about each other, and say, well, I don't like you because of that thing, or you are we can't agree with each other because you have because you are this and I am this, and therefore we can't come together and just say, hey, we're human beings. We have to work it out. We have to figure it out. We have to figure it
That's
out.
right. I mean,
and people would rather do it individually or in their own little echo chambers or groups rather than coming together and say, hey, what if we put our brain power together and say, hey, how can we better each other in society and we all benefit rather than just one individual or one group benefits. And don't get me wrong, I understand there's a utopia type mindset, and there will be losers in life. But I think if majority of us can win, if you will, in a win-lose type scenario, we'd be just fine.
Yeah.
But
well,
I digress.
You're right. I appreciate that. And the fact is growing up, when you grow up and with there being when you're growing up and there's a level of trauma going on or whatever, and you're living in a fear, it's very hard to understand who you are. Because you're having, my main thing was making sure that if he came in the door, I would rather not be seen, because I don't want to be the first one lashed out against. Yeah. But so, and that feeds you through school. You don't know who you are. You don't have a foundation in life. Now, my dad and my mom went to church. My mom played piano, great. And she, like I said, she's a fine woman. And my dad, he tried the best he could, but I always felt like his friends, it was like some kind of game, like musical chairs, because once somebody would get so close, he would back away. I could see that as I got older, because he was afraid somebody may see him, and know more about him than he wants them to know. So this trauma thing is so real. And then in high school, I played a little ball and everything, and I was working at the family gas station. I would take a piece of plywood, prop it up against the tree. When I got to the point where I could throw a baseball, and in one throw, it'd go through the plywood. They had already got divorced by this time. I had a stepfather, and he said, boy, you're throwing hard. And we just so happened to be watching a Braves game. And he said, you need to go to that tryout. So I actually went to the stadium that Bull Durham was filmed in. And that's where I tried out with the Atlanta Braves. And I was invited. Ended up being invited by, the Cubs, Padres, Pirates, and the Braves. And I decided to go to Atlanta, to West Palm. That's where the Braves had their spring training. About 2 months before, my mom and I had realized, while my stepdad was a really good man, he had a drug problem. He was downing 25 to 30 Percocet a day. And then he turned around and he finally one day, he just opened up, went and grabbed different bottles of booze. And I just looked at him. I said, you do not have to be a bum. And when I said that, he began spitting. He rushed at me, and I put him down. Well, I'd already been to the tryout and everything. I was 2 months from reporting to spring training. Between that and a car wreck that happened about 2 weeks later, when I was at the doctor, he said, Mark, there's so much nerve damage done in your hand, you'll never be able to throw a baseball again. You'll never be able to throw a curveball. Now, see, I thought I was going to be a ball player, and I thought for the first time in my life, I was actually getting some identity. When that was taken away, I turned around, and if the listeners are thinking about it, they've probably had something similar happen where they think they're getting a few steps forward, and then they fall right back into the same place. And it's like, how did it happen? And you get frustrated with life. You want to give up. So I lost my baseball career. And then wrestling. I knew some people. I trained 4 months on a 1-inch collegiate wrestling mat. And they're hard. It was on a concrete floor. That's what I trained on. I took body slams, back drops, everything.
So you went from not being able to throw a baseball to be like, yeah, I guess I'll get thrown on this concrete slab right
Yeah,
here.
that's a really smart fella, ain't it? So anyhow, and then go and work small shows, and then one day I get a call. One of the old assassins. Jody just passed away about 3 years ago, I guess. He called and said, Mark, and he's got this real deep voice. I said, yes, Miss Jody. He said, and he's run a town called Cleveland, Georgia. That's in North Georgia. He said, I need you in Cleveland tonight. I said, okay, Miss Jody, sure. What time are matches? And when do you want me there? He said, well, you're going to report at 6. It was either 5:30 or 6, and matches were going to start like at 7:30. I said, sure, I'll make sure I leave here by 3 o'clock. I want to make sure I get there in plenty of time. He said, no, Mark, you don't understand. I said, sir? He said, I'm now head booker for the NWA, which became, in a few weeks, it became WCW. I actually need you to come to the 12th floor of CNN Center. I said, sir? He said, yeah, just come to the 12th floor of CNN Center, tell them your name. You're going to go up an elevator because the 12th floor is restricted. Walk to the wrestling offices, give them your name. They're going to give you airplane tickets. Miss Jody, what? I feel like Lil Arnold going, what you talking about, Willis? What? Sir, this is a very mean joke. Please stop. Please stop this. It's gonna hurt real bad when I realize you just ribbing me. Please don't do it. That's what I was thinking. He said, when you get into Cleveland, just get a cab and head straight over to the arena. And I had to ask him what the arena was. I didn't even know. And he told me. I said, yes, sir. He says, you need to leave your house in about 20 minutes. I said, yes, sir. I ran, put stuff in bags. I mean, within an hour, I was already 40 miles down the road, getting close to CNN Center. And it was then when my behind caught up with the rest of me. I was moving so fast. I mean, when my behind hit the rest of me, it was like a slingshot. I went back. So I went up there and did it, and I'm on this plane. Now I'm thinking, I think I'm going to throw up. I think I'm going to pee in my pants. You're nervous. I'm scared to death. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm going to get killed. What's going to happen? All these things are running through my head. I get there, Ron Simmons, the Fabulous Freebirds, the Midnight Express, Flair, Terry Funk. And Terry Funk comes, shakes my hand. The guy's a legend. He sits down right beside me in that raspy voice. Hey, son, I haven't seen you around here. I said, yes, sir. This is my first time. You'll do fine. And
wow.
And Terry, right, and I'm thinking, I got to shake everybody's hand. Now, Terry Funk, I know I'm going to wet myself. Now, I just shook Terry Funk's hand. I know. So what do I do? Do I shake hands first or go to the bathroom first? Or what do I do? I'm stuck. Yeah. Then something clicks in my brain and says, just do them both at the same time. I'm just kidding but that's the way I felt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like you meet, like, everyone has this idea in their head, like, meeting these legends. It'd be like meeting Tom Brady and then it just being like, hey, man, you're going to do just fine. And you'd be like, I don't know how to feel right now. In my head, I've practiced talking to you, but I've never thought I would actually talk to you.
Your tongue gets so I'm in this big. Position. You're going,
all you're doing is making noises, and they're not words; they're just noises.
That's right. So I'm up there, and I become one of the few guys that lose 99% of the time, that flies around with everybody. Usually they just get local wrestlers out of the schools and things like that. Well, I didn't go to no fancy wrestling school. I was trained by one man on that cement floor. And one thing I'll let you know is in WWE right now, do you know who the Bloodline is or anything like that? Any kind of wrestling?
No, I used to be big in
Okay.
WWE with my nephew, but
Well, I'll tell you, there was a wrestler years ago named Rikishi. I wrestled him. I wrestled Sam Anoa'i. Anoa'i? It's something like that. Sam lives in California. The thing is they're related to The Rock.
oh wow,
And they're related to Roman Reigns, who just lost the
oh I
title.
know Roman Reigns.
Okay. The whole bloodline, the Fatus. Those
Yeah.
are Kishi's sons. So
Holy shit.
on WrestleMania this year, I was looking at half the card, and having worked with Dusty Rhodes and Cody Rhodes, I'm looking, and
Yeah.
and on one of the nights, I realized I wrestled with half the people's family.
Holy crap.
Yeah, the stuff's on YouTube as well.
Is it? Oh, I'm gonna have to look this up.
So anyway, it's crazy. But, you get in, I became good friends with the Junkyard Dog, good friends with the Iron Sheik. We always called him Sheiky Baby. That's what you called him. If you went,
So like they have these names, right? But like internal or like behind the scenes, you guys have each other's nicknames for each other.
yeah. JYD,
So
you
what was
may
your
go,
name?
dog, hey dog. Or, you know, I worked Sid Vicious. I was very, it's amazing. Bray Wyatt, who just passed away, I wrestled his uncle and his daddy. So,
Did you win?
with all this, and I became one of the guys. I wrestled against Scott Hall, who was Razor Ramon in the NWO with Hulk Hogan and all that stuff. I wrestled with Scott
Yeah.
Hall. I wrestled, gosh, I can't think of everybody I wrestled right now. The Nasty Boys, Brian Knobs and Jerry Sags and all this stuff. Anyway, so you get the point. I'm in with these guys, and as I get used to it, I don't realize I'm changing, but I am.
Yeah.
I'm becoming a schmuck. I'm saying that because I actually watched a video on a good Jewish deli a while ago, so I'm using that word. I was a schmuck. I basically just about lost every friend I had. I'd been married for 2 years. We barely made it to 3. She walked out, which I cannot blame her.
Mhm.
It was me. And I'll tell you something. In the book, people ask me, okay, your dad was abusive. The thing happened with stepdad. Who's the bad guy in the book? Q, it's me.
Wow. You?
Sure.
I mean, but you were the you from your dad abusing you and your brothers and into your stepdad, doing what he was doing and ultimately tried to come after you in that way, right? Like
yeah. But you know what?
you were
I was a drunk. Even as a teenager, late years teenager, I was a drunk. And I'll tell you why. What else is when I left, when my wife left, I was cleaning out the apartment. They're in Atlanta, and there was a little stick, and it was pink on the end.
man.
So I took it to my sister. You know what she said it was? A positive pregnancy test. Tried calling my wife at that point over and over and over. Nothing. Finally, one day, a family member picks up the phone and says, Mark, everything's taken care of. Well, I could read that so many different ways, but I'm not going to because, I should say, I'm not going to hone in on one scenario because I'll tell you this. If anything bad was done, I was the poison.
Yeah.
I could you know what? Nothing may have ever happened, but then again, I'll tell you what. If there's between you and me, there's a baby killer
Mhm.
on this podcast right now, and it's not you.
Oh,
I told you we was gonna
and
get
do you think
heavy,
that's
huh?
and you think that's what she ended up doing?
I don't know. I will not say that
Mm-hmm.
because of the fact that I would not want anything to get back to her that I'm spreading
Of
something
course.
that
Yeah.
would make people look at her negative. No, I was the jerk. I was the
Mm-hmm.
poison.
And wrestling was a big part
Well,
of that.
wrestling was part of it because what I did, Q, is I no longer was Mark Smith, the guy that wrestled. I was the wrestler Mark Smith. And
Mm-hmm.
see, that's where so many of us make mistakes. Is the fact we take on an identity because we really don't know who we are.
Yeah.
Look, when she walked out, I picked up a Bible. I just started reading. Okay. Then I'm like, what am I going to do now? Well, I get called to the sheriff's office. He says, Mark, these men are with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. And those cassette tapes are you. Because of the fact you were talking about steroids and other people's names were mentioned, they're going to get you on distribution. It's going to be 20 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Complete shift. Okay.
Tell me everything you know. Here's a pen and a pad. I said, Mr. Richard Sheriff, look, I don't know enough. I mean, if I've got to deliver so much information, sir, I'm going to prison. And I don't want to go to prison. I mean, he could tell I was being honest. He said, just
How
right.
old were you at this time?
20, about 24.
24 years old being told, hey,
24,
20
25.
years
Yeah.
in prison.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So, and you know what? They had the cuffs laying on the table. Anyway, he asked the GBI guys, he says, will y'all leave me and him alone? And then, that's when he's talking to me about writing everything down. I write everything down. He looks at it. He says, okay. I didn't have no real information to give him.
Mhm.
He calls and they come back in. He says, gentlemen, I don't see that there's no benefit for society to put him in a prison for 20 years. I know he's telling everything. I know his family. He's telling everything. But Mark, I need to let you know something. And he took what I had written, put it in a manila folder, and there were other papers in there too. And I don't know if there were warrants for my arrest or what. I don't know. He said, but I know there was. He put the tapes back in them with it in that folder, and what I wrote, tapes, yeah, and some papers. And in front of him, he said, Mark, that line, that fork in the road, you better not take another step toward it. I'm going to keep these. If you ever cross that line or get close to that line, the GBI is going to reinstate all of these charges and you will go.
Oh, wow.
And I've had people tell me, well, didn't you feel great walking out? Q, I didn't.
Yeah.
I just had been knocked down into that hole that I had created more.
So were these these were steroids?
Yeah.
Were they? Was it like a wrestling thing or?
Oh yeah,
like...
everybody in the business now, they'll even admit back in that era, man, people were pumping, they were juicing everything, even to the degree of horse hormones.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. And if legally, if you can't say anything, whatever, were you as well?
I wasn't doing the horse hormones.
But you were doing the steroids?
I just started.
Man, that's crazy. And so you walked out. And again, I know because I was going to ask you, how did you feel walking out? But excuse me, there, I imagine while there is some relief of, okay, I don't, that was a lot to take in a short little time, right? But at that point, did you say, hey, my life needs to change? I need to change something in my life.
Something had to happen. I wasn't sure what it was. And I'm actually writing the book right now called Wrestling with God.
Yeah.
Because me and God had a match. All through this time, he and I had a match. Because when I saw a member of my family that was hitting us and he was sitting in the choir, I thought everybody in a church did that. And I was wondering, what's going on inside their house? What's going on inside their house?
Yeah.
And so I just got to the point where I thought, I don't need it. Not that crap. I don't need it. So anyway, well, what do you think about the story so far? We've laughed a lot.
So I was looking up because you said you wrestled with God, and I was like, Jacob, was it Joshua or Jacob? It was Jacob who wrestled with God. Jacob who wrestled with God, and you know, saying that it brings back memories. But you know, it's like I said in the beginning, right? You have you have this experience, you have this story, and in a lot of ways, you know, some would say like that should like break you down or defeat you. You should be defeated by now, right? You shouldn't have a reason to take a step forward or want to wake up in the morning or whatever the case might be, or smile for that matter. But you're here, you're talking to me, you're smiling, you're laughing, you're able to tell the story and say, hey, like this is what happened. It happened. And, you know, it didn't feel good while it was happening. But at the end, I learned a lesson that I needed to learn. And it's amazing. And I tell people this all the time. I say, you know, God works in mysterious ways. And when I used to say it when I was told as a kid that God works in mysterious ways, I'm like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. You guys always say that. That's always what we say at the church. And then you kind of fast forward it, especially for my life. And it was like where I'm like, no, God works in mysterious ways. I now understand what it means when he says God works in mysterious ways. Because, you know, for example, when you said, yeah, you know, I thought I was going to be a ball player. I thought I was going to go to, go to the league, I just tried out. They said, hey, you got an arm on you. We can use you. And then God was like, hey, hold on. That's not the path that I have for you. That's not where I want you to go. The path that's not where I want you to go. I want you to go this way. I'm trying to nudge you this way. And we do our own thing, right? Us as trying to be obedient in some ways or not trying to be obedient. And but he nudged you in a direction, and then ultimately he put you on the path in which he got you where you wanted you, and it puts you closer to him. And that's what it is. That's what it's all about. Because I experienced that myself. Right. Where I had to, and I've told the story several times on the podcast where I failed a drug test in the military, and it's Delta 8. It's like THC. It's like, yeah, Delta. Okay. So yeah, I did Delta 8. I got caught. And from there were the risk of losing my clearance, the risk of getting kicked out of the military, and having to pay back the Army because I just re-enlisted and got a huge bonus at that time. It was damn near $20,000. Yeah. And risk of having to pay all that money back that was already spent, for that matter. And my wife was 7 months pregnant or 6 months pregnant at the time with our second daughter. And so all of this going on, I'm getting in trouble, and God did that. I won't say he did that, but it was orchestrated to the point where now at the end, I realized was like, if I didn't go through that, I would still be drinking every weekend, like a sieve, like just ridiculously amount of drinking that I was drinking or that I was doing. I would still be, I'd be out of shape or not, definitely out of shape and not in shape for the military, like I should be. And I wouldn't be able to be a good father. And I definitely wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't have the being where I am now. But I had to go through that to get to here. And like I said, I tell people God works in mysterious ways, because if I didn't go through that, Mediocre Dads wouldn't be a thing. The podcast thing wouldn't be a thing for me right now. I would just be living my life thinking like I'm invincible. I didn't get caught. Like I can do whatever I want. but it happened, and I was able to do that. So like even with your story, like I said, it's God is so powerful in how he wants to transform us, right? And so you've gone through all of that, right? You're at this point, right? Do you have any kids at this point? Other
No,
kids that you're aware of?
no.
Are you married or remarried?
You're
No.
about, well, no. You're about to start hearing about miracles, though.
Mm-hmm.
I was just down in a hole. Finally, I looked up. I said, okay, all right, fella, you want to talk? You're supposed to be there, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's talk. And we had a powwow that went on for a while. And then it happened. I was walking into a hardware store. An old geezer, pop, pop, pop on my shoulder. Sir, son, I have a word for you. And I'm thinking, yeah, you hit me like that again. Pop, pop, pop. I'm going to have some words for you too, buzzard. But he said, you do not have to go to school all your life to be a minister, to be a preacher. That's what he said, to be a preacher. And I'm thinking, no, I did some drugs on the road. But I sure would like some. Yeah. About 2 weeks later, it's a woman. Yes, ma'am. Son, I have a word for you. Yes, ma'am. I'm thinking in my head, crap, going through this junk again. You do not have to go to school the rest of your life to be a preacher. About 2 more weeks. Ended up being a total of 8 times.
8 times. We ask God to speak to us all the time, and we were like, "Hey, God, give me an answer. Tell me what to do. I need this direct word. I need it." And sure enough, He gives it to us, and we sit there and we're like, "That's maybe
That's not
that's
the
not the answer
answer I
I'm looking
want.
for." Yeah, that's not the answer we want. Oh man.
So anyway, I go through a little thing in my heart, and I'm going, okay, kind of like an AA thing. I need to make amends. I probably called and visited 200 people apologizing. I even went to that college where I had went with a 1.11 GPA. It was right out of high school. I went to college for 1 year because my mama was, Mark, you need to go to college and get something in computers now. You need to get something in computers. I was getting stuff for computers. Who's got beer on sale this week? Who's got it? And then 1.11 GPA. I was telling you a little bit of that before we came on the year, I believe it was. And folks, I'm going to tell you, you have achieved something when on the letter at the end of the year with that 1.11 GPA, it does not say, Mr. Smith, we are sorry to inform you that you're on probation or whatever. My letter just simply said, Mark, please leave, go, get out. When they realized I didn't have money to get out, I got like a $10 or $15 gas scholarship. That's how bad they wanted me out. And with all this, look, do you realize how hard I had to work to be that stupid? I mean, think about it. Yes.
That's a lot of like not showing up, maybe, but like even then, like,
oh, I was showing up. I wasn't missing class.
No.
I stumbled into most of the classes.
There you
and yes, I may be the only person in history that believed that Jack Daniels signed the Declaration of Independence, but I actually found out later it was John Hancock. I should have got something because I knew it started with a J. But no, I didn't. I call that bias. So
you can say my declaration was signed by Jack Daniels. Yours, John Hancock.
Ooh, I could have said, ooh, that's good. Anyway, but I swore I was never going to go back to school again. I didn't, and these people telling me that was just ticking me off.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was going to have to go to that dean and apologize. So I went to the dean. I told her everything that happened. I said, I want to apologize. I wasted your time and everybody's time here. I'm sorry. She said, Mark, there's something that I want you to do for me. I said, yes, ma'am. Go to the bookstore and get books and start class tomorrow. Now, she thought she was doing me a favor, but I hated school so much. I was like, oh, ma'am, thank you. On the inside, I was going, no, 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 no.
This isn't what I asked for.
That's not what I wanted to say. I'm sorry. So, anyway, I went to school all of a sudden. You know, I graduated with a 3.0, and in grad school, I had a 3.5. And it was all because the foundation of my life had changed. Now, I want to tell you another miracle. I met Brenda. We've been married 32 years.
It's awesome.
We went to a church service together. It was an old camp meeting. I mean, it was fun. People running around and jumping up and down. And I'm like, let's go. I loved it. Okay. Anyway, uh, but I said a little prayer. I said, God, going back to school and all this. Been divorced for about 1.5 years now, whatever. I just want to know, am I going to be single or am I going to get married again? Just kind of let me know what's going to happen. Q, according to the stories I have told you so far, what do you think happened when the service ended? I'm just going to see if you can figure this out. Huh?
That's when you met Brenda. She was singing up on the stage, and then she came down.
She was about down with me.
Oh,
but
yeah?
Now,
oh, man.
All right. Tap, tap, tap.
Oh, man.
This lady, she was probably a brunette, maybe 135 years ago. I'm not sure. She had gone from salt and pepper to white to silver to blue, and now she was at purple. I swear, I thought I saw a prom invitation from Abraham Lincoln in her pocket. I swear I thought I saw that. Anyway, she says, son, I have a word for you. And I'm going, no, not again. No. No
like
more
I'm already in
words.
school. I'm doing what he said.
No more words. Well, anyway, she says, whatever you've been praying for, the answer is right beside you. Now, to my left was about a 75 to 80-year-old man. And then I look over in Brenda and I'm going, please, God, tell me it's Brenda.
It's like, sir, do you have a daughter I can marry?
I was just hoping, I saw deliverance. Please, no, go ahead. But anyway, that's the way things happen. Now, we have our 3 biological children. One of the biggest miracles of all. I'm in Dallas, Texas on business. We live in Marshall, Texas. My wife, Brenda, calls and says, Mark, get back to Dallas quick. I'd already started on the way home. I said, well, sure, what? She said, I'm in an ambulance. Our son, Austin, who was 2 years old, had started turning blue and purple with bruises. What happened? We don't know. When they did blood work at Children's Hospital in Dallas, he had lost all the platelets in his blood. He was bleeding out from the inside. They were able to get that to stop, but we lived probably 4 months, knowing that if he scraped his knee even, he would bleed out before we got him to the hospital. And you're dealing with a 2-year-old. He had so many blood tests, it's ridiculous. They all come back, no platelets. Doctors were saying, we've never seen this, we don't know what to do. Finally, they call us, they say, we need a word with you. Brenda and I, when you hear that, you kind of think, well, they're telling us how much time he's got left. And they went on to say the recent blood test, we found something. Oh God, what is it? Well, it's a disease. You know what's going to be. They said overnight, almost 300,000 platelets just popped in his blood. Went back for another test. Platelets are there. My son's about to get married.
God is good. Oh my goodness. You gave me goosebumps.
So, one thing I love about the name Mediocre Dads is, number one, you don't become a great dad or a good dad by how many it's not judged by how many material things you can buy your kid. It's not about lying to them about things you've done in the past or whatever when you haven't, or trying to make yourself out more than what you are. Fact is, all of us are broken people, but there's a difference with some of us, and I know it's in you too. You found that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
It has all to do with the foundation. I was on a show about 2 weeks ago, and we were talking. I was talking about foundation. I said, I want to bring up a little story, The Three Little Pigs. The guy said, is that guy or girl? I can't remember. Anyway, said, oh yeah, you want the brick house. I know where you're going with this. I said, actually, I'm really not going there. The fact is with the amount of wind there's even a chance the most feeble house there could have stood if it was actually on a good foundation. And that's the thing about us. When we have a good foundation, that foundation of God, and God is love. So I'm talking about a foundation of love and God. And absorbed in all that is forgiveness, understanding, reconciliation. And you all that is encompassed together. And what you do is you're actually then giving your kids the greatest gift of all. And that is, number one, how to be loved, but also how they should allow themselves to be loved. When that happens, your kid won't face loneliness anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's foundation. I was talking to a young man the other day. So me and him, his name's Caden. He has autism. He's in college. He's doing great. I was talking to him the other day, and his episode is going to be out on the 22nd on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to him, and we were kind of going through a conversation, and he's only 19, so he doesn't have kids yet, but he was telling me about how his dad had really supported him while having autism growing up, and then getting to the point where he could go to he goes to Kent State in Ohio, and he's doing great and doing all that. But his dad was the driving factor behind all that.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going this conversation, and I got to a point where I was like, a lot of kids today were, because he was talking about being bullied. I said, a lot of kids, they see what their parents do or say or whatever the case that they're doing at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bring it to school, and, and this is where you get kids acting up.
Right.
And he said it himself, and something he had come to the conclusion of himself. He was like, he goes, I believe everything starts at home. And he goes, a lot of these kids do not have a foundation, a strong foundation. So when they leave home, anything and everything they're willing to accept and take on, because there was nothing, no foundation to build upon.
Mm-hmm.
It was flat, barren earth, and now they're like, I'm willing to believe in anything at this point, or willing to do anything to be accepted, whatever the case might be. But it was amazing because I told him exactly what you just said. Was when I said, Caden, I hope not anytime soon because you're still young, but when you do become a parent, when you do become a dad, I said, what your goal is in the beginning, especially in the younger years as they get older,
Mm-hmm.
and when they're really that most impressionable, is you need to build a strong foundation. So when they do step out into that world for the first time, and you're not there by their side every waking moment, you can trust and believe, one, in God that He has their back, but two, that the foundation that you built with them, that they will always come back to say, I'm good. I know where I come from. I know who I am, or know at least a piece of who I am. And I know that if I do have any questions, or if I do have any concerns, I know where I could go get them. And they're not from out here. They're from back at my house where my mom and my dad are to help to answer those questions, or we can sit down and pray about it and talk about it together. But I know that there's a foundation that if I do, I need it. I know where to go back to. And so I just, when you said it, just made me think of that, because it's so powerful that the fact of the matter is foundation. We're all skipping. We like to skip to the end and say, hey, I didn't build upon any of a foundation, but look, I'm rich now. And it's like, okay, where is the foundation though? If you have the foundation and you get rich, guess what? It's really hard for someone to take that away from you. So, powerful.
Well, think about the number of rich people that commit suicide.
Mhm.
You know, and if the stock market crashes again, if it does, I don't know. If it was to, think about the number of people that are going to jump out of windows, the amount of guns. You know, I've known wrestlers. One of them was one that really encouraged me to get into the business. He's my age. When we were living in Texas, my wife came in and said, Mark, something's happened to Mark. I said, what? Something's happened to him. And I said, well, let me call his gym. So I called the gym where he always worked out. And they said, yeah, it's true, Mark. He walked out to the back of the property and he put the rifle to his head. And in wrestling, the drug abuse, so many things that happen is because people are searching. And I counted, I think at last count, at the time of their death, they were under 50 years old, but I've wrestled with over 44 guys that died before the age of 50. And about a year ago, we had several suicides and they were all by high school kids. So, you know, fatherhood, if you really want to have a meaningful relationship with your children, you got to wrestle with your demons.
I agree.
You can't be the dad that was beaten by chains and then takes it out on other people. And so, to the listeners, am I perfect? No. Do I claim to be? No. I have 8 children. I told Q just before we come on the air, my wife and I had 3 biologicals. We've adopted 5. We have 3 Caucasian, 4 Caucasian. I'm sorry, 4 Caucasian, 2 Hispanic, and one of them are at the house, and they're actually a high functioning autistic. They're autistic. Okay.
Wow.
And the other one, Army baby.
There we go.
He's in Tacoma, Washington.
Oh man.
So thank you for your
always
service.
Raining up there.
Yeah. But so thank you for what you've done too. Okay.
Thank you for your support, sir. Appreciate it.
But with the 4, then the American Indian, Native American Indian, and the 2 Hispanic, and African American. And I got to tell you, I don't care what their hair feels like. I don't care whatever. I look at each one of them and I go, my God, you're looking more like me every day. And our African American child, his name was Jamarcus, and he changed it to Jefferson Mark. He said, I want your name, Dad. But he wanted Jefferson. And I know his favorite wide receiver is Jefferson with the Vikings, you know. But the thing is I was able to work through my demons. And the fact is, working through your demons is not the toughest job in the world. It's basically, number one, acknowledging that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like being an alcoholic. If you're an alcoholic, the hardest job is to admit, okay, I'm one. Then you're ready to fight. Yeah. But you can't fight when you've turned away. I couldn't never wrestle in a ring if the other wrestler had always turned his back to me. How fun would a boxing match be if both fighters had their back to each other? They weren't acknowledging each other.
Wouldn't be fun at all.
Exactly. So you acknowledge it. Then you look at your true tag team partner, the man up there, and say, start showing me. I need to understand. And do like me if you want to. I'm dumb. I don't understand a whole lot. So come on, go ahead and shoot it to me through other people. Now I say that, but truthfully, and I do say that, but for just so FYI, so you know kind of where I come from, my degrees are in psych, soc, with in pastoral ministry with an emphasis of marriage and family therapy. Okay.
Oh, awesome.
That's where God took me from that kid to there. You know, I don't use a lot of churchies and I don't go, oh, thou, or nothing like that, because I think if we're going to show people that we're real, we actually have to act real. We have to
Yes.
talk real. And so I come as a very real person saying, with your acknowledgement of the demons that have occurred in your life, the trauma, those demons, the things that you remember that just eat away at you every day. And you know they're blocking you from other people, being able to experience a true loving relationship with other people. That's when, okay, tag team partner, come on, make the tag. Because he beat my behind. And when I say beat it, I'm going to tell you what he saved it. He saved me from myself. Folks, he can do it for you too. And I want you to know, God don't make no junk. Don't you ever think that you're junk. He does not make junk. You're not alone. And there's somebody in this world that loves you. You got two of them right here. Is that okay?
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. Well, before we end up closing this out, I got two things I want to say. So my audience knows this, and anybody who knows me knows this. So I was adopted. Me and my twin brother were adopted.
Really?
Yep, at 2 years old, by a white family, and so So my parents, my family is an entire white family, and so we took on their last name when I was how was that? Like 5, maybe 5 or 6. And we made that decision. I remember us talking to, it's one of those random things you remember as a kid. I remember one day sitting in the kitchen saying, hey, why don't we have the same last name? And they're like, well, blase, blase. And it was like, okay, well, we want your last name. We want that last name. We want to be a part of this family. And we want, in kid terms, obviously, in some terms. And they're like, okay, I mean, if that's what you want. And we're like, yep. And so we took on their last name. So that is why my name is Wilcox now, because I want to take on their last name. And so I say to you, you're doing a great job. I have no doubt that you're doing a great job. And your adopted kids, they do, they may not show it all the time. And because I would say we're not, and I say we as those are being adopted, we may not be great at, expressing ourselves in showing a love and affection, but we in our hearts, we do love the people that care for us, because we knew at one point we weren't cared for, and the people who were supposed to do it didn't do it. And there was somebody out there who didn't know me, didn't know me from anybody else, and said, I don't know who you are, but you're special to me, and you will always be special to me, and I'm always here to take care of you. So I will say that as one. So thank you for adopting, for doing that, because there are people out there who are like, nah, I want my own kids. I'm like, no, I promise. It's like, if you can't have your own kids or whatever, even if you can, adopting is powerful, because the impact you have on a young person's life and how you can change it, you will see it.
And look at even fostering. We did not look to adopt. We became foster parents to help out because there was a need in the community, but in no way were we looking to adopt. But sometimes that relationship, it just grows. You fall in love.
It's a bond.
And we, in our family in particular, every kid that's come in, they start calling me dad in like 2 days, and I don't ask them to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't. And when I punish them, they'll come in. They say, "Dad, I had a bad day at school." Okay, you know what's going to happen. What'd you do? Okay, they get punished, and then they know it's over. You get what I mean? It's over.
Yep. It's over. That's it. That's what I tell my daughter. I said, listen, it's not about dad, giving you, punishing you and saying, look, we're just going to keep on. No, like it's over. That's it. I'm here to correct the action or the mistake or whatever what was done. I'm here. The reason for the punishment is to correct the action. And the punishment is not so I can be superior to you or
That's
superior
right.
to my kids. It's to correct the action. That is the end state, the desired end state. When you have to punish your kids, it is to correct or fix the action, the negative action of
Right.
whatever it is they're doing. And so that is what I tell my daughter is like, listen, you can always come talk to me, tell me what happened, tell me how you're feeling. Right now,
Mm-hmm.
in that, understand though, it's not that I'm not trying to use your words against you to pin you and say, "Ha, I got you." Right? No, it's to say, listen, I want you to talk to me, but I also want you to understand that there are consequences to everything that you do, negative or positive. There are
That's
consequences
right.
to everything you do, and so at the end of the day, understand that Dad loves you and is not here to be superior to you, but I'm here to teach you, to
Yeah.
know, so in the future what right looks like.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
used to, I used to teach parenting classes and so forth, Q, and in counseling with parents and children.
mhm,
And the one thing that I learned that I had to stress, and that is your kid does not need a parent to be their buddy.
mhm,
They have buddies at school.
yep,
They need someone that will love them enough to do the hard things. And my kids have always known that. And that's why even those that are out of the house about to get married or do whatever, we're very close. They know I don't do anything without trying to think about it first. But the main thing is let your kid know that you're trying, and you can admit you're not perfect.
mhm,
I mean, that's okay. But they also need to hear I'm doing the best that I can. And you say that and they understand you're saying it with love, they'll get it.
it takes
But
time. It
yeah,
takes time.
and
And a lot of
too
people,
much.
yeah,
Too many parents are trying to be friends with their 3-year-old or 4-year-old. And it's the parent that actually has to toughen up. Because
mhm,
at 3 years old, that kid's already learning. It's all about love.
yeah,
It's
I
all about
agree.
love. And so, because I look at it this way, I think I think that was very painful for God to have to turn his back on Jesus and let Jesus absorb the sin. And Jesus did not realize how hard it was, because why would he have asked the question, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Jesus was probably pretty surprised asking that
Mhm.
question, going, my God, my Father, is it really, it's this hard?
I tell
Hey,
people, I said, y'all have to think about it. I said, before Jesus was arrested, before Judas and the religious leaders came in and arrested and took Jesus to Pilate, right? I said he went and prayed. He had two disciples with him. It was Peter and I can't remember the other one, but he went and prayed. The first time he prayed, he was like, "Hey God, if do I really have to go do this thing? Does it really have to be me to do this?" And God didn't answer. He didn't answer him, right? He didn't answer because he didn't want to talk to him. He didn't answer for a
mm-hmm,
reason. And so he came back down from the hill or mountain he was praying on, and they were
mm-hmm,
asleep. And he was like, "Can you guys just stay awake with me?" Went back up there, prayed to God again. God didn't answer again. Came back, but when he came back down the second time, in his heart he knew. In his heart he knew God had answered him in his own way to say, "Hey, yes." And Jesus knew. And so when he sees Judas and him approaching him, and Judas greets him with a kiss to let them know this is the person which you are here to that are going to you to arrest, right? He could, and Peter, obviously draws his sword, cuts off the guard's ear, right? He could have continued to let Peter continue to do his thing. And like Peter would be like, hey, Peter was ready to go down with swinging, right? But he didn't. He's like, no, heals the man ears. And he's like, this is what's supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
This was already foretold.
Right.
Right. This was already foretold, and it happened. Right. And I mean, it's because we pray to God and we ask, and we're like, God, please, please. And it feels like sometimes he's not answering. Right. But little do you know, in the background, in the behind the scenes, he's doing everything that you're asking. Not everything you're asking for, but he's directing it. He's directing everything.
He's already
to put you in a position,
things, getting them ready,
preparing you. So, because I tell people right now, the person you are right now, you may not be ready to receive the blessing that you want, that you're asking for. But in 2 months, you may be the completely different person, ready to take on that blessing. Because when you are ready to take on that blessing, man, you're going to be able to multiply it rather than just hold on to it.
Right. And to our listeners as well, and we're talking about the insertion of God into the parent-child relationship, which is very important because of that foundation we've talked about. What I would also note is that, guys, if you feel overwhelmed, it's not a sin. If you're depressed, it's not a sin. Sometimes for some of us, it's harder to cope with different changes. And that's the reason I say, do not feel embarrassed to seek help. If you feel like you need some help, it's okay. And so, some people, when they talk about God and God's power, the way it's being talked about is that, somebody with God's power, they're just infallible. I mean, they can just, no, we're not Superman. We're not Superman. Accepting Jesus, having God in your life, what it does is it helps us with the foundation. It helps us see things more clearly, but it don't necessarily fix everything. And if you're finding you're depressed, you're thinking, with my child, I just don't know what to do. No, that's not a sign that you've got less God in you. Isn't that weird? How and it's truthfully, I mean, very common. The way some people talk about God in people's lives, it's almost like if anything's going wrong, you've got less God. You get where
That's what they told
from?
Job. That's what they told Job. His friends were like, "Hey, man, you must have did something wrong for God to want to depart from you." So, and it's not the case. It's not the case at all.
Exactly. And we all, I mean, there are things that you're good at, you're so much better at than I am. And there may be something that I do a little bit better than you or whatever. It may be. But that's not a competition.
It's not.
And for our fathers, it's not a competition against another father to see how good you can be. Be the best you can. Use the tools, hopefully, that by listening to Q and the people he has on, and if I've instilled something wonderful, but use those and use them as tools. And if there's another tool that you may need, don't feel like you have less God. Or don't feel like God loves you less, because we're all made different. Q, I hope I made that I hope I made that clear. How did I do?
You did. You did an awesome job. I'm so appreciative to have you on and to come on here and tell your story and go the direction to get. I even told you in the beginning, right? Like I have started these conversations and then they go in a direction, and the next thing you know, we just kind of like, we're just there. And it's awesome where it goes, because that's just the power of conversations. I'm going to say two things, y'all, and then I promise we're going to be done. If you made it to this point, that's awesome. Paul talks about having every person has their own spiritual gift. So your spiritual gift may not be that other dad's spiritual gift. So my spiritual gift in a lot of ways for me is the ability to talk. I am a talker. I have the gift. It's called the gift of the gab, if some would say. And Because I'm that makes up me. That's who I am. I'm able to say things and talk, and it's just great and whatever. That's my gift. That's not everybody's gift, though, right? So your gift is different from mine, and well, your gift is probably it makes you what makes you who you are, and makes in some way you're better at it, that thing than I am, right? And so anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. That's my 2 cents on that part.
That's great.
But other than that, guys, thank you for joining us on this episode. It's been a long one. I appreciate it if you made it to this point. And before we go, I'm always going to say it, guys. Being mediocre is a choice, and you have to refuse to be mediocre. Other than that, that's all I got. Mediocre Dads out.